Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Take Three podcast. My name is Brandon, and as always, I'm joined by my guy, Alex. In this episode, we're going to be covering we're going to be finishing up the NFC North. We're going to cover the 2021 NFC North division preview. We did the AFC North last week, so we kind of just been continuing the trend. We're jumping into the NFC North. Obviously, Packers defending champs of that division. They went 13-3 last year. The Vikings kind of come back with the same group of guys. Didn't really do much defensively. Obviously, the Bears are always kind of there with that defense, but we got to sit back and see what that offense looks like. And then you get the lonely Detroit Lions. Not much expectations. I don't know. Dan Campbell, he's an interesting head coach. That guy will give you a soundbite or two. He's kind of crazy. I kind of dig it, but it's like, I don't know if I can really bank much into Jared Goff and those guys just yet. So before we really jump into this thing, let's just get some early thoughts on the NFC North.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's Green Bay's division to lose, right? Green Bay's clearly the best team. They're a Super Bowl contender again. They got Aaron Rodgers back, at least for one more season. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Packers do. And then I'm interested to see how much Justin Fields plays in his rookie year. That's all I'm really interested in.
Yeah, for sure. I think not to go too far ahead. Yeah, I think that Justin Fields will definitely see him sooner rather than later. Everything I've heard out of Bears camp is that he's the real deal. He seems like the real deal. And then it's funny to look over at Jets camp and I'm watching Zach Wilson go 11 of 24 with 2 picks against guys in shorts that can't touch him. And the Big Apple, it just seems like they are going to eat him alive. But you guys can go back and check our thoughts on the AFC. So let's keep this thing going. So we're just going to get right into it. We're going to jump into the first team we're going to cover in the NFC North is going to be the Detroit Lions. They went 5-11 last year. Kind of a typical thing. They weren't really a contender. They didn't really do much. They finished with the 7th overall pick, which they added up. Penei Sewell. Sorry, I knew I was going to botch that one. Out of Oregon, they probably got the best prospect, I'd say. I mean, at least the less likeliest to bust. You'll have Bengals fans out there say he's not a franchise left tackle. I think they're in denial as their quarterback gets smashed. I think Sewell was a pretty safe pick. I think it was a great pick. They got, I think when I looked it up, they were rated the 5th best draft class by PFF. So it's like they got a good draft class. They were able to add Amon-Ra St. Brown, which is a 2nd or 3rd round projection at the wide receiver position. Obviously, they lose Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones, they lose Jamal Agnew, they lose Deron Harmon. And then their big addition, obviously, they traded Matt Stafford to Los Angeles, but they acquired 2 first-round picks, and they get Jared Goff. I mean, he's not really, I wouldn't say, I mean, he could be, but I wouldn't really put him on Matt Stafford's level. He's a good quarterback, serviceable quarterback. But that's who he'll be coming and playing quarterback for them. They had Michael Brockers as well. It's funny, Brockers talk trash about Detroit, and then he ends up there. They had Tyrell Williams at wide receiver, Rashad Perryman, so they get some speed to try to recoup that position. And Alex Anzalone from the Saints and Josh Hill from the Saints. So it's funny to see Dan Campbell bring some Saints with them. So before I really jump into anything I have to say or question-wise on the Lions, I mean, what are we looking at in Detroit heading into this year?
Yeah, Detroit, like putting reasonable expectations on Detroit, I don't know where to really put them. Like if they win 6 games, is that a successful season for them? Because like the roster's not great, a lot of overhaul, but like 6 wins is never a great year. And then you get like a middle of the range draft pick. So I don't really know what to expect out of Detroit. I like the Saints additions on defense. I like bringing in Jamal Williams as a backup running back. Like you said, Perriman and Williams at receiver. And then they had a pretty good draft class. So like I think for the Lions, it's if you can see some growth and by the end of the second half of the season, you can tell they're playing much better football than the first half of the season. Maybe Dan Quinn will secure some extra time to try and build something there. But I really don't know what the reasonable expectations should be for Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. I don't know if there is any really expectation. It's kind of just let's see if Dan Campbell can come in, instill his system, see if he can try to pull anything out of Jared Goff that maybe Sean McVay hasn't got out of him. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I don't know what Dan Campbell did in New Orleans, right? Because Sean Payton has pretty much heavy control over that offensive scheme and what they do offensively. So it's like, what was Dan Campbell's real role in New Orleans? Was he just a guy? Was he just a guy in the air? Did he do anything? I don't know what his role was. Obviously, yeah, they got to get more out of the defense. They had, I think it was the 32nd ranked defense. Yeah, points and yards allowed. So they just got murdered on the on the ground. They got killed against the run. So I think they were 20th against the run. They allowed like 135 yards a game against on the ground. So it's like you can't really win football games that way. But I mean, I'm going to get right down to it. I mean, they clear cut, they downgraded at the wide receiver position, right? Marvin Jones, he's been pretty solid through his career. Kenny Galladay obviously does his thing. So I mean, I'm sitting back and looking at Matt Stafford's out as well. Is Dan Campbell, is he kind of already set up to fail as he arrives?
Yeah, Marvin Jones is in Jacksonville. Galladay's in New York. You lose Matthew Stafford. So then you have Jared Goff, TJ Hawkinson, DeAndre Swift at running back. And then I haven't mentioned any receivers yet. So then Tyrell Williams, Brashad Perriman. I don't know. They drafted St. Brown from USC. So it's like the offense, I don't know how they're going to really put up a lot of points. I just don't see them moving the ball super well. Sewell will help the offensive line, right? And DeAndre Swift's very good when he's on the field, but like he's not good enough to carry an entire NFL offense, especially for a full season. So I don't know if they're going to be able to put up points. And like you said, the defense, they have trouble stopping the run. They tried to address it. Wrap picks 41 and 72 for them. Rounds 2 and 3 are both D tackles. So but like that's a lot relying on rookies to come in and be impactful right off the bat. So I don't see how Jared Goff can go and play better than he did at times in LA too. So it's like Goff's not an elite guy that elevates other people. He had a tremendous head coach that got the most out of him. So if he couldn't do it with McVay and those weapons, I doubt he can do it in Detroit. And Detroit lost their good weapons. So they are set up for failure. Like I said, if they can just show improvement week to week, I think that's a win for them.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Campbell, he's kind of screwed off the bat, but that's kind of really every coach that takes the job of the Detroit Lions. It seems you kind of, I mean, you got your work cut out for you, right? And then you lose Matt Stafford. And yeah, I'm right on with you. If Matt Stafford couldn't really get this team over the hump with those guys, and then you take those guys out, and then you insert Jared Goff pretty much in the same team. I think Dan Campbell, he's kind of screwed. I mean, if he can create a culture and kind of build that and show that, and as you said, yeah, get improvement and show some type of improvement to kind of lure guys to come to Detroit, but they're kind of just in a weird spot. It's like Detroit's not really a spot where guys would want to come as free agents anyway. But yeah, I kind of think he's already set up to fail. I mean, when he signs that contract, I think he kind of knows that. He's like, we'll see what we can do. Maybe I can just build my name up, do this, show some growth, and then, hey, we'll see what other jobs we can get down the line.
It's all about his timetable, right? If Dan Quinn's given a respectable amount of time, so like a couple seasons after this to actually build something, maybe he has a chance. But I don't know, knowing Detroit, and I just don't think he'll get a long leash at all.
He'll get a solid 3 years, I think. By year 3, if they don't say anything, he's out. I mean, you're assuming they're going to net a top 10 pick this year, and at best, you start trying to make a push next year to get towards that 500. Really depends. Like they gotta think year 2 is big, but we're not really gonna jump forward into that. Give me 1 second.
Well, the jump is interesting too, because if this is Aaron Rodgers' last year in Green Bay, then the division kind of opens up. We'll see if Minnesota can improve the defense. We're going to talk about that. And then we'll see what Justin Fields does in Chicago. We're also going to talk about that. But it's like a paradigm shift for the NFC North, especially if Aaron Rodgers ends up leaving. And if he leaves, then the door is wide open for the first time since before Brett Favre was there. So it's just Detroit's timeline is actually kind of sped up just because of the other teams in the division.
Yeah, some technical difficulties there, but we're good to go. Yeah, I mean the timeline. Yeah, it's kind of it's 2022. We got to see if Aaron Rodgers is in Green Bay. It kind of the whole landscape of the NFC North opens up. We don't know how good Jordan Love is going to be. Obviously, we kind of have a feeling that Justin Fields is going to be pretty good. So yeah, Dan Campbell. I mean, my prediction is he gets like 3 solid years to do something. Year 3, if he doesn't do it, they probably move on. But I mean, I'm going to jump straight into the next one. Can Dan Campbell? We already saw what Jared Goff was in LA with Sean McVay. We kind of saw that Super Bowl year where he came into his own and he was kind of the real deal. It was like, wow, dude, Jared Goff has finally showed up. It was funny that Carson Wentz the year before was looking great, but yeah, can Dan Campbell, can he kind of get that, or can he try to pull more out of Jared Goff? Is there any way that he can kind of bring more to Jared Goff and get him back to the level of football that is expected when you're a number one overall pick in the NFL?
I don't really see how he can. I'm not going to say that he won't or it's not going to happen. I'm sure it's in the realm of possibility, right? But like Sean McVay's a tremendous young head coach. He had Jared Goff and that offense humming at one point. And even then, when they were like doing well, even the Super Bowl season, Jared Goff would still kind of lay out some stinkers here and there and not play super great. So I just don't see how Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions can elevate Goff if it was a task for Sean McVay and that really good Rams team.
Yeah, we know. We also don't know the Dan Campbell scheme, right? We got to see what is he going to have to do. I mean, they have DeAndre Swift, but it's like I don't know if he's an every down back in the NFL, which is funny when you look at them last year. Adrian Peterson led the team in rushing, even with I believe maybe Swift got hurt. I don't really follow much
I'd say
line.
Swift got when they gave him a bunch of carries, he ended up getting some concussions and he missed some games. So
Yeah, well, it's NFL football. Concussions will probably happen, but yeah, the wear and tear. I mean, it's a running back position. He's going to get beat up. Bad O line. Well, not really a bad O line, but yeah, it's really what does Jared Goff gonna have to do, right? The weapons are worse. You don't have Cooper Kupp, you don't have Robert Woods, you don't have Higbee, you don't have a Cam Akers, and then you of course don't have that defense on the other side of the ball that he had with the Rams. So it's like, is Jared Goff going to try to force it too much? Is Dan Campbell really going to try to force Jared Goff to do things that he can't do? Is he going to try to turn him into a 40 throws a game guy? I don't think Jared Goff's a solid 25 throws a game guy, and then you get your running back enough carries to kind of carry you through that. But I mean, if the defense isn't there, and we saw the Lions defense wasn't there last year, it's going to put the ball back in the Jared Goff's hands more times. And yeah, I just don't know if that's a recipe for success with that group that he's coming into. I mean, the only thing I can say that's positive is there's like no pressure on him, right? I mean, he is the number one overall pick, but when you go to Detroit, when you go from LA, Super Bowl aspirations, and then you go to Detroit, the pressure's off, right? Like you don't really, there's no expectation. You got a rookie head coach. You're kind of doing your thing. I mean, the table's set up. I don't think that we'll see anything close to that Super Bowl year when he took the Rams to the Super Bowl, but it's like, I mean, there's no pressure. It's kind of, you can just go out and play football.
yeah, I agree entirely with the pressure. Like you're in Detroit. I don't think the pressure is very high. Like the Detroit fans understand that Green Bay runs the division and there's better teams than them in the division. Also, like the defense is a good point. Jared Goff used to have that phenomenal defense that could bail him out all the time. So it's going to be interesting to see if he takes more risks or he plays more conservative, knowing that like the defense isn't that great to like kind of back him up if he makes mistakes. And then pressure wise, number one pick and played in LA, dude. You're playing in front of celebrities. You went to the Super Bowl. Even if there was pressure, I wouldn't worry about Goff pressure wise. It would be the rest of the team, but like they're not going to have pressure to win games anytime soon.
No, not really. And he's kind of already secured the bag. Yeah, I mean, I just don't know if even if he was to try to launch it downfield, it's like the who's of receivers that he's out there throwing the ball to. I like TJ Hawkinson a lot, but the other guys, it's like Rashad Perryman hasn't really panned out. Yeah, and then who else is out there with him? Tyrell Williams. It's a bunch of guys that really haven't panned out, really haven't shown you much. I mean, they've shown flashes, right? Perryman showed flashes last year of like this is the guy that everybody thought he was going to become, but it's like I don't know if the play design and the guys that he's going to be trying to take shots with is going to be there.
Yeah, and then like Tyrell Williams was good when he was healthy, but like that's such a big factor in NFL football is like being healthy. So it's like if you're not healthy, it doesn't really matter how good you are. Do like Hawkinson as well, DeAndre Swift, but like Swift's is already missed in games. It's just like it's a tough offensive unit to work with.
Exactly. So yeah, tough offensive unit, and then I mean, just kind of last thing to wrap it up is will the defense? The defense obviously they could improve. They're 32nd in points against and yards against last year. So it's like, can they improve? It's funny that Pro Football Focus actually had them the third worst rated. The Texans and the Vikings were rated first on their scale. I'm not sure the criteria they use, but will that defensive unit at all? Will they see a jump?
I think they'll see a jump. I don't know if it'll be a big jump. Hopefully, Okuda comes back and is more used to the NFL game, and he's better. They drafted the Syracuse cornerback. Like I said earlier, they did back-to-back defensive tackles and help stop the run. But once again, those are all draft picks, and it's hard relying on draft picks. Even Sewell, pick 7, round 1. You got he's not guaranteed anything. He has to show up and play. So it's hard to rely on draft picks. But to answer the question, for the sake of how bad they were last year, I'm going to go ahead and say they make a jump, even if it's a small one.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, they'll probably get to like 30th. I mean, 32nd, you jump up to 30th. That's a big deal in Detroit. But yeah, I don't see. I mean, yeah, if Jeff Okuda can live up to it, I believe they signed a defensive end. I think it was Romeo Okura. I probably botched that name, but he was with them last year.
Yeah.
So they brought him
3
back.
years.
Yeah, maybe he can get to the quarterback and create some havoc. They just kind of it all relies on Dan Campbell being able to create that culture and have guys going to come in and really work hard. Because you can look at Matt Patricia, really, he lost the team probably 2 years ago, not even really last year when he got fired, but probably 2 years ago. And nobody really wanted to play for him. So it's like Dan Campbell comes in. Can he reinvigorate the defense, kind of get them hustling, get them hungry? And then, yeah, I mean, for the sake, I'm with you. They were 32nd last year. I usually don't want to project that a team's going to be that bad again. But I mean, in order for them to kind of make any improvement, that defensive unit's going to have to be at least a little bit better.
Yeah, Okara they signed. They got Brockers in a trade. The 2 D tackles they drafted, Anzalone. So they improved personnel wise. They should go from 32 to like, I don't know, 26th, 27th, 28th, somewhere in there.
Exactly. And that's being generous. I mean, it's just looking like a wait and see, probably another down year in Detroit. But I mean, if Penei turns out to be the real deal, if some of the other guys, if Amon-Ra St. Brown, if he can show something in his rookie year and kind of show out and he could be the future at wide receiver in Detroit, there's some guys there that are young enough that can really start to build this Dan Campbell culture and really push the team forward going years into the future. I don't really think this is a 2021 thing, although this is a 2021 preview. This is more of a 2022, 2023 timeline for the Detroit Lions and kind of establish something where you're going to be kind of just repeating the same cycle. But I mean, any real closing thoughts in Detroit?
No, not really. It's going to be interesting to see the scheme. And really, if I'm a Lions fan, the only thing I want out of the season is by week like 12 and on that you can tell they're playing much better football than weeks 1 through 4.
Yeah, you just want to see some more hustle. And I mean, it's really what I have as well. So we'll jump straight in to prediction. It's not on the screen, but DraftKings Sportsbook has the Detroit Lions, their regular season win total for this year. The over-under is set at 4.5. It's pretty fair. They went 5-11 last year. Another game is added to the schedule. But I mean, when I went through their schedule, they kind of have tough games, right? They play the 49ers, Packers right off the rip. 49ers, Packers, Ravens right off the rip. Like that's a gauntlet. Then you go on the road to the Bears and then on the road to the Vikings. And then you play the Rams at the Steelers. You go to Denver, you go to Seattle. And obviously it just seems like, I mean, they just have a gauntlet of a schedule. When I went through, I had them, I think at 3-14. I believe that's what I had down. Yeah, 3-14 off the top. I just think tough schedule, rookie head coach, just a lot of working parts. I mean, I don't think they'll be very competitive. It's just too tough. That's what I have.
I'm right there with you. I got them at 4-13. Defensive unit's not great. Skill positions aren't great offensively. It's just going to be a tough year for Detroit. But like I said earlier, if they can show some improvement, I think they just need something to build on heading into the offseason. So if they can play strong football the last month of the season, I think that'll be all right for them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the Detroit Lions are looking like. I mean, now to take it down into the Windy City, we'll straight jump into it. The Chicago Bears, they went another 8-8 year. It seems like they're always around there with Matt Nagy. And since Matt Nagy's really been the head coach, they're right around that 8-8. They're maybe get you into a wild card game. And it's been a weird tenure. It's kind of a lot of pressure on Matt Nagy. I think this is really the year. Like if they don't see anything, he could go. I don't think he got any type of contract extension. He was kind of on the fence last year, but kind of survived. They go out, they add Justin Fields, they add Andy Dalton as kind of a veteran quarterback. It seems like Andy Dalton will be the week 1 starter there. How long, we don't know. They obviously franchise tagged Allen Robinson. That was a big one. They lost Kyle Fuller, replaced him with Desmond Trufant. They had Damian Williams from the Chiefs. It's pretty good running back. I mean, they kind of have a weird running back tandem. Tariq Cohen tore his ACL last year, so you don't know where he's going to be going into this year. They re-signed Mario Edwards Jr. on the defensive line. And then they had offensive tackle Tevin Jenkins. They obviously lose Mitch Trubisky. I mentioned Kyle Fuller, Buster Skrine, who I believe was their nickel. And then they lose their starting right tackle, Bobby Massey. So, I mean, before we jump into this thing, what are the Bears looking like? They're always right on the fringe with that defense. They usually have high expectations. What do you see?
Yeah, since Matt Nagy's been there, the defense has always been elite or at the very worst above average. So I would expect another year with an above average defense. But like since he's been there, the offense has been one of the worst in the leagues. They can't move the ball. Quarterback has not turned out great for them to say the least, but now they get Justin Fields in there and that's really what it's all about, right? If the defense can continue to play above average, then really just need the offense to match the output. So if Justin Fields can get in there and actually push the ball down the field or just make better decisions in general, then the Bears could be a pretty good football team. And they're kind of hard to predict because I don't know if Andy Dalton's how long he'll last, if maybe the season doesn't look like that, but like if he'll just start a month or like it's just so hard to predict what the offense is going to do. We're assuming that the defense will stay at least above average, so it's going to be it's kind of hard to figure out the Chicago Bears. It's going to be an interesting season for them.
Yeah, the Bears are interesting. Just going in and looking at them. I'm now looking at it. I have it on the screen right now for myself. So Matt Nagy took over in 2018. So he's in year 4. In 2018, their offense ranked 9th in points, 21st in yards. Defense was ranked 1st in points against, 3rd in yards against. Then you go to year 2, where they were 29th in points and 29th in yards on the offensive side of the ball, 4th on defense. And then you go to obviously last year, they were 22nd in points, 26th in yards, and their defense jumped back to middle of the pack. So, I mean, what you look at throughout this Matt Nagy tenure is in 2018 when they went 12-4 and obviously lost in the wild card round. Both of the units have really just took a step back each year. The defense more gradually. Like, I mean, obviously most defense, you're not going to have the first ranked defense. And then it's very rare that you come back to back years with the first ranked defense. That stuff's going to happen, injuries. But it's interesting to see. Yeah, both sides of the ball have consistently went backwards for that Bears team, and it's kind of everybody wants to see what Matt Nagy's offense is going to look like. I mean, when I watch Bears football, the little bit that I've seen, I don't like Matt Nagy. Kind of has weird play calling. He's kind of I don't know. He's not very aggressive. He doesn't like to take shots from what I've seen in the offense. He's very conservative play caller. That's the word I was looking for. So I don't really I'm not really impressed with that. And then the defense, I mean, they kind of need more out of Khalil Mack. He kind of has taken steps back too since the first year when he got there. He was pretty elite. And then if you go back to a year like last year's, Zadarius Smith in Green Bay, who's paid far less than Khalil Mack over the past 2 years, honestly, if you check the numbers, Zadarius Smith has kind of outperformed Khalil Mack. So it's like Khalil Mack kind of has to get on that high horse and be that guy that when they went out with, but it was Oakland back then, but now it's Vegas, when they went out and got him from the Raiders to anchor that defense. Just going right into it. My first question about the Bears is, how long is Andy Dalton's leash? Is he going to get 3 games? Is he going to get 5 games? Is he going to make it half a season? Personally, I don't think it's going to be very long. I think you could see Justin Fields by week 5, to be honest, maybe even sooner. But what are you feeling on the Andy Dalton leash?
Yeah, I don't think Andy Dalton lasts longer than like a month. If I was the Bears, I think I would just play Justin Fields. Obviously, I'm not in camp. I'm not a coach. I don't know much, but I just like Fields. He's like got all the talent in the world. That doesn't necessarily mean he can put it all together, but he certainly has the ability to do it. And also, I think the Bears are scared. For some reason, the NFL has the Rams Bears Sunday Night Football Week 1. I think it'd be smarter to do Packers Saints or the 3:30 game, but they have Bears Rams Sunday night, and I don't think they want to give Justin Fields a primetime debut with like all the pressure. I think they're trying to avoid that, but I don't know. He played at Ohio State. He's been in big time games. I don't think pressure really bothers him that much. He performs well with it. So I would just start him off the rip, but I think they will roll out Andy Dalton, and I don't think he lasts longer than a month.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think Andy Dalton, honestly, I think we'll see Justin Fields probably week 4. They open up at the Rams, then they play the Bengals, and then they play the Browns. I think you get through that portion of the schedule where you avoid throwing Justin Fields to the Rams defense and the Browns pass rush. And then you get him in there that week 4 game at home against the Lions, right, where you can kind of ease him in. It seems like a simple game. But that's an easy debut game. Like I think they would rather him debut against the Lions at home than go on the road and play the Browns or go on the road and play the Rams. And I don't know if it's necessarily like him not being ready or having Andy Dalton. I just think it's a big issue. They lost both of their tackles. They lost their starting left tackle and they lost their starting right tackle with Charles Leno Jr., I believe it was, and Bobby Massey, who they cut. So now you're throwing a rookie in there, Tevin Jenkins at Oak. I believe it was Oklahoma State. Don't quote me. But yeah, he's gonna be playing left tackle. So it's like they maybe want to ease him in, give him some weeks to get his feet under him. Because then if you go rookie quarterback, rookie left tackle, week one against the Rams fired up on Sunday Night Football, it's kind of a recipe for disaster. And then you kind of kill your quarterback's confidence before he even gets started. It's kind of just a thing, right? It's as much as he's played in pressure situations at Ohio State, when you get to this level of football, it's not Oklahoma's defense and it's not Clemson's defense anymore. It's when you're facing NFL speed, it's legit, right? When you got guys like Jalen Ramsey out there covering Allen Robinson, and they kind of lack depth at the wide receiver. I just think it's a combination of things. They just want to ease him in. There's no rush, but I think it's like there's no rush, but there is a rush. But I think they're going to play it smart, get him out there week 4, and realize, yeah, that Andy Dalton is not it.
Yeah, I think that's their exact thought process. Even as like a top pick, there's still this psyche thing. Like you still haven't played it down in the NFL. Like they want to show the world that they deserve to be there, but it's like telling themselves and showing themselves that they can hang with these guys, they can play with them, they deserve to be there. So I do agree, it is like a psyche thing. And if he were to face Aaron Donald and they not go well, I don't know, that's like not the right way to get the career starting off. So that could affect him. I do agree with those points. And I do think that's like the Bears thought process. But week 4 just looks perfect. We talked about how inept the Lions defense is. They're relying on some rookie draft picks and those D tackles to stop the run. Chicago could easily run all over Detroit with David Montgomery, and then we'll see where Tariq Cohen's at. But like, if you plug him in week 4, you get a home game, you get the Detroit Lions. You don't really have to, in theory, you don't really have to worry about him chucking the ball 30, 40 times. You can just get him like 20, 25 passes, get him just kind of in the flow of the game and like try and dominate the game through stellar defense and running the ball, which seems like a perfect recipe to kind of ease him into the season.
Yeah, they got to ease him in. I mean, maybe even you throw him out for the Browns game, because like if you throw him out there week 4, he gets Lions, he gets Raiders, and then you jump right into basically a gauntlet of 4 straight weeks where you go Packers at home, at the Bucks, 49ers, and then Steelers. So he's going pretty much playing in that stretch 4 solid defensive units. So it's like maybe you throw him out there against the Browns, kind of let him get his feet wet against a good pass rush. I would say a respectable pass rush, which is more respectable than the Lions and the Raiders are going to toss out there at you. But yeah, I think we're both in agreement that Andy Dalton, it's going to be a short tenure, at least as a starting quarterback. I think he'll be a good mentor for Justin Fields. I do think he's like a good locker room guy. And it's kind of, I like to see when teams do that. I don't know why the Jets haven't done that with Zach Wilson. If you look at their roster, they have no veteran quarterback on there to kind of mentor him through the tough stretches. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough on Justin Fields, but yeah, I think it's smart to get him out there week 4
Let
instead
me,
of, go ahead.
let me ask you this about Andy Dalton, because when we saw him start for Dallas last year, and their defense is not very good, but the offense has all these weapons, right? And Andy looked terrible. He did not look like a starting quarterback in the NFL. Do you think that's more of Andy being older and he can't really start in the league anymore? Or do you think Dallas was just kind of beaten up, not there like mentally ready to play, and Mike McCarthy just did a bad job coaching? Do you think it's like that, or do you think it's more like Andy's really not a starter level anymore?
I'd just say it's, yeah, Andy Dalton's not in anymore, right? They still had CD Lamb, they still had Michael Gallup, they still had Amari Cooper. The O line in Dallas is arguably, I think Tyron Smith is still playing when he gets put in. So the setup was better. I mean, the Bears O line is going to be worse. They only really have 1 wide receiver compared to your 3, and then obviously Zeke in the backfield and Tony Pollard. Yeah, I mean, I think Andy Dalton's really just he's not on that. He's kind of he can give you a flash to kind of get you excited real quick, but then you kind of realize he'll throw some interception and the arm won't be there, and it's kind of like, all right, yeah, this is why Andy Dalton has kind of floated around the league the past 3 years.
Yeah, I would lean more towards that as well. And he's even like peak Andy Dalton with Cincinnati, and they like won the NFC North and lost the wild card games. But like even then, when he was playing really well, it was like slightly above average. It was never like truly elite quarterbacking, not longer than a month at a time at least. So it's just Andy Dalton was like, an average, slightly above average guy, and he's just declined.
Yeah, that's facts. Yeah, and I think that's what we'll see coming out of the gates, especially against the Rams on Sunday Night Football. I don't expect big things, but I'm going straight on sticking with the Bears offense. Their line, obviously, I mentioned they lost two starting tackles, which is pretty big in the NFL. Losing any starting offensive line pieces is pretty big. Is that position? Are they going to be able to hold up for either Dalton or when Justin Fields takes over? When you're counting on a rookie who has played 0 NFL snaps yet to start at left tackle and kind of protect that blind side of the right-handed quarterback. Um, yeah, is there O line? Are there tackles? Can they hold up through that gauntlet of a schedule? Obviously, we mentioned that week 6 through 9 stretch where it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, that's the big question, right? Because that week 6 through 9 stretch, then they go on a bye week, then they immediately get the Ravens at home. So like it doesn't really like lighten up that much. So that's gonna be interesting to see. It's like if they can't hold up, they're gonna get beat up really bad, and then you have the defense on the field a lot more. And yeah, that's their strong unit, but like even elite units can only be on the field for so long in a game, right? We've seen all kinds of really good teams wear down by the end of game just because one team's had the ball way more than the other. So that's the big question for the Bears. I look at their schedule and it's like hard to find wins when looking at the schedule. And if the offensive line doesn't hold up, then it's going to get bad fast. It's just they're in like such a weird situation. I'm going to go ahead and say, if I were to guess, I'm going to say that they do hold up and they are an above average offensive line. Um, which would allow him to run the ball well. David Montgomery had a fantastic finish to the season last year, not the season as a whole, but like the tail end of the season, he was very good. So that's the real big question. You got to protect Fields. You got to have that offensive line hold up, but they just face gauntlets like of pass rushers defensively. And it's like, that's going to be an extremely tough test. And that's another question is, do they want to put Justin Fields through that? So it's like, I think it's going to depend on how you see them hold up against the Rams and the Browns to start the season. If we see good play against them too, I would have confidence in it. It's just like it's hard to figure out.
Yeah, they're just they're paper thin up there, and I just I don't know who's starting at the right tackle position. I just don't know if it's easy to count on a rookie right out of the gates jumping into the NFL. On the bright lights facing the Rams, and then obviously some of those other defenses. I mean, I think they'll hold up, but I just don't know how great they're going to be, and how much they'll really be able to run the ball right. I mean, they have Allen Robinson, and then they have I forget who the tight end is. Cole Kmet. That's who it is. But it's like outside of that, they don't really have any respectable guys on the outside. I think they had Darnell Mooney, who kind
I'd
of
say I like Mooney.
yeah, he took off last year, but I think when I was looking and researching, the Bears had a couple other guys that did that, and then the very next year could not repeat that same thing after really taking off. So it's like some guys show flashes, but I mean, yeah, the offensive line is going to be a key part because you don't really want to force the defense's hands because the defense obviously you've seen numbers wise take steps back, and then obviously you subtract Kyle Fuller out of that secondary and you sub in a Desmond Trufant. I don't know. That's a pretty major downgrade at the corner position, I'd say. So it's like and then you're putting more on Cleo Mack and the guys up front to do more and more work to kind of patch up the rough spots on the team.
Yeah, Trufant's gonna hold up, but he's not like an elite corner. He's like average at best. So like that
Yes.
that puts more pressure. And then like the Mooney point, he just if you watched him last year, he just couldn't get the ball to him deep. He'd have steps or be open, but like the quarterback just couldn't deliver it to him. So like it never works out like this, but in theory, if Justin Fields was there and could actually deliver the ball to him, they would have been a much better offense. But like that's not how it works. It's never smooth like that. But that's what they would be hoping for.
Yeah, I was going to say that'll just segue into that. I was going to say who will emerge as that number two behind Allen Robinson. And yeah, I mean, you can get back to last year, but then you subtract the two tackles that have played NFL football, two veteran tackles off of there, and you sub in two guys, a rookie, obviously. Is there going to be time to get the ball deep to Darnell Mooney by whoever's playing quarterback? And will Matt Nagy be able to dial up enough to kind of protect his quarterbacks and kind of get the most out of that offensive line? I've said it. He's pretty passive play caller, and it's kind of this seems like the year like they go 8-8 or 7 or 8-9. Sorry, it's weird with that 17 game schedule. 8-9 or 7-10, like it could be a wrap. There's a lot of pressure. I think he's gonna there's going to be a lot forced on. But yeah, who's really going to emerge? I don't really know how deep they are at wide receiver outside of Mooney and Allen Robinson, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on Matt Nagy, honestly, and how he calls the offense. Like you said, he's been kind of conservative. I think he's kind of been forced into that since that 12-4 season, just because like Mitch Trubisky kind of like regressed and like he would just miss open throws. We've all seen Trubisky not play very good football, right? So he's kind of hampered by that. And then if the tackles are not up to par, they're not playing well, then I would put it on Matt Nagy to get creative with the play calling. He's shown that he can be creative in the past. And if he gets Tariq Cohen back and then Justin Fields can move a lot, then you just need to get creative, kind of like get interesting with some pre-snap motion and things like that to get guys open. When the year they went 12-4 and they had the better offense, Mitch Trubisky was running the ball quite a bit. He allowed Mitch Trubisky to just like take off if he had an open lane. And that was not the same last year and the year before. Mitch Trubisky was simply not nearly effective enough, obviously, but he was much more effective when he could actually run the ball. Then when he wasn't running the ball, the offense really stagnated. So I think it really depends on Matt Nagy getting creative with the offense. And then like, especially if the tackles aren't going to play well, it's just like, I expect as the head coach and he's an offensive guy, I expect him to get creative and like problem solve these things, figure something out that's going to work. Just even if it's not big yardage plays or chunk yards, like just figure out something to keep the chains moving and get some first downs.
Yeah, he kind of has to. I mean, we've seen Justin Fields at Ohio State. He has the legs to do it, but it's like I don't know how much I want my quarterback running around, taking risks, taking hits, especially cold weather. Weird field up there in Chicago too. The grass is all beat up. If you ever watched a game in December and January in Chicago, that field at Soldier Field kind of gets beat up. Just looking at their wide receiver position, I didn't even realize they have Marquise Goodwin, Riley Ridley, Demir Bird. So it's like it's weird. They have Allen Robinson, and then they kind of have all these other dudes that do the same thing. They're all fast, right? They're all track stars. I don't see any guy that's really. I haven't really watched much Darnell Mooney. Honestly, I haven't really watched much Bears as of last year, so I didn't really see how he broke out. But I'd picture him as a speedster, kind of a straight line guy. Um, they just have a weird depth chart at wide receiver, a bunch of speedsters that do the same thing. It seems like you can easily just lock up Allen Robinson. You'd even afford to double him and then just not get beat over the top by somebody else. It's going to be, I don't like what they're coming out with.
Well, the Bears need their running backs to catch passes. They need Tariq Cohen, David Montgomery out the backfield, and Cole Kmet to play well. Because
They got Damian Williams too. He caught a pass in the Super Bowl that won a Super Bowl for the Chiefs, I believe. Yeah, wasn't that? So
yeah, there you go. So like they'll need their running backs to contribute for as pass catchers as well. And then they hope that Cole Kmet can take another step at tight end. He's shown flashes, so there's a lot of what ifs here.
yeah, I just don't look looking at their offensive line too. Tevin Jenkins questionable, James Daniels starting right guard questionable, Jermaine Ifedi, who's their starting right tackle, is listed as out right now. So yeah, it's kind of just weird, and we don't know what Tariq Cohen's going to look like coming off the ACL. I do like the Damian Williams move though. He's a proven good pass catcher, can get some carries too, but he's a good swing back out of the field. Should fit right into Matt Nagy's scheme, but it's going to be a lot of pressure for whoever ends up playing quarterback in Matt Nagy's system, as he's probably on the clock as the season begins, with the hourglass running out of sand as we speak. And any closing thoughts really on the Bears? I mean, it's kind of, we got to see what that offense looks like. We got to see if Matt Nagy has one kind of final act, because in my eyes, I see if he doesn't take any step, at least a playoff appearance. A playoff appearance probably saves them, because then you can say, yeah, we have Justin Fields coming in for year two. We're going to make these strides. But if they fall short of the playoffs, I would say that the Bears ownership will pull the plug on the Matt Nagy era.
Yeah, I would probably agree, but it's just the Bears are so interesting because if things were to go their way, they could be legitimately a really good football team. But there's like a lot of what ifs. There's a lot of moving parts here. There's a big one at the most important position, quarterback. So it's like it's just hard to predict what the Bears are going to do this year. But they have their like range of outcomes is anywhere from like a really poor team to like a very good playoff team.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of a lot of question marks in Chicago, a lot of pressure in Chicago, and I'm just going off of the historical. Since we've seen the Matt Nagy era, the team has went backwards since his first year, and that's kind of a sign that you've either guys have got older, you got injuries, or you've kind of just you've lost your touch, right? Like sometimes you lose your touch as a head coach. But just jumping straight into what is going to be the record prediction, at least my record prediction for the Bears. DraftKings has their line set at 7.5. It's kind of a good one. It's like this team, if everything works out, Justin Fields takes over as we assume, and he's the real deal and kind of scratches out maybe one or two or three extra victories on the schedule that you kind of didn't think that were there when I go over the schedule now. They really have a shot to exceed that, but I'm just going to go conservative when I do their pick. I'm going to go with the under on the 7.5 and take them. I have them at 6-11. I just mentioned that gauntlet 6 through 9, actually 6 to week 11, because obviously they had the bye week 10. I have that's 5 straight losses. I have them losing to the Packers, Bucks, Niners, Steelers, and then coming off the bye and losing to Lamar and the Ravens. So it's just like they have a tough schedule and they're kind of punting. I think the way they're going to run it, they're punting the first 3 games by tossing Andy Dalton out there. So that's arguably you could have 3 more losses. If I'm going to say I'll be nice, I gave them 1 win against the Bengals because I just don't think Joe Burrow will be ready. But yeah, so I'm at 6-11. I just think tough schedule and they're punting games early by using Andy Dalton. It's just not much future there.
Yeah, I'm not far off. I have them at 5-12. That 7.5 line, I think, is really good because I feel like I'm wrong about this. Like that's like kind of dumb to say, but like I have them at 5 wins, and they feel like on paper they're a much better team than a 5-win team. They feel like they're an 8-win, like a 500 type team. So I have them at 5-12. I honestly think I'm going to be wrong, and they're going to figure out a way to squeak out some wins here and there. But like it's just hard. Like their home games, you get like the Packers, the Vikings. They have the Cardinals, the Ravens, the Niners, and then you go on the road to Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. The Rams open up. It's just an extremely tough schedule. I don't see where they get wins. I got them at 5-12, but like I feel like I'm wrong. I feel like they'll squeak out some wins. I'm not really sure how, but like I said, they're a hard team to predict.
Yeah, they're tough to predict. I think it's fair that they could be anywhere from 5-6 wins to somehow squeak out 8 or 9. It's a weird one. And usually when I do these kind of preseason things where 2 division teams are sort of close, like the Vikings and the Bears, I usually just split the games anyway, just play it as fair as can be. Obviously it'll probably change. It'll backfire on me, but that's kind of how I do it. Like the Bears could easily win both games against the Vikings because the Vikings defense, as we'll get into next, hasn't really improved that much. So they just have a gauntlet of a schedule, and it's a weird year. It's a team that has potential, could exceed the expectation, or they could just fall short and really doom Matt Nagy and send him packing. But let's just go ahead and straight take it up to Minnesota. As I mentioned, the Vikings just a brief second ago. Minnesota Vikings, I would say another down year, to be honest. When Kirk Cousins joined that team 3 years ago, he was labeled as like the missing link, right? Case Keenum. If we would have had Kirk Cousins, we would have been in the Super Bowl, or we would have went to the Super Bowl. And this and that. And then you look at their defense. Last year was god awful. I believe they were 27th in yards against, or 29th in points against, 27th in yards against. So they boasted an elite offense. Like the offense was elite. Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook was very good. Justin Jefferson, obviously they got a lot out of him. Adam Thielen. So the offense was there last year, but it's like the defense kind of wasn't there. And it's kind of, that's been the thing through the Kirk Cousins era. I think he came there 2018. It was after the 13-3 year. He came there, and it's kind of one playoff appearance. What do you see in Minnesota?
Yeah, it's all about their defense, right? If they can improve and actually get some stops, because the offense was an elite unit. They even managed to beat Green Bay last year because of offensive output. What was it? 160 yards, 3 touchdowns from Dalvin Cook, one of the best backs in the league. So, like, they're right there with Green Bay if their defense could somehow figure out how to get stops, because their offense is top notch.
Yeah, that's facts. And I kind of whiffed on who they added. They did add defensive tackle Dalvin Tomlinson from New York. So they kind of shore up that defensive line. They had Patrick Peterson from obviously the Arizona Cardinals. He comes up there maybe to shore up that. They got Xavier Woods, safety from the Cowboys. And then they go offensive side in the draft. They added Christian Darrisaw from Virginia Tech, first round pick, probably to replace Riley Reef, who went to the Bengals. And then the interesting pick for me was in the third round. Their first pick in the third round, they added quarterback Kellen Mond out of Texas A&M. So it's like, are they putting a clock on Kirk Cousins? Are they kind of saying, Kirk, we got to see something. You kind of got to push us farther than just a wild card game and show us a little bit. And then when you go on the side that they lost Kyle Rudolph. I mean, they have Irv Smith. So it was kind of writing on the wall. Kyle Rudolph was a good veteran, but he's not going to stick around. They lose Anthony Harris as well. I mentioned Riley Reef. He went to the Bengals, and then they lose linebacker Eric Wilson. So like the core team is still there, but it's like, did they add enough? And I'll just go right into it. So in the offseason, they went with a weird concept. Mike Zimmer obviously is a defensive head coach. So he kind of, I would assume, really takes a stranglehold on the defensive side and the play calling there. But they went with co-defensive coordinators, Adam Zimmer and Andre Patterson. Can that group between the three of them, both of the Zimmers, and then obviously Andre Patterson, can they get more out of that unit? I mean, they have Danielle Hunter. I believe they still have Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, who's solid. Harrison Smith's still there. You bring in Patrick Peterson, you bring in Dalvin Tomlinson. On paper, it's like you're going to have a better unit, right? But we got to see if you put everything into the bowl and mix it all together. Will they spit out a better defense than last year?
Yeah, I definitely think the defense will be improved. All those pieces they added, I like their draft for the most part. Once again, relying on rookies is always tough, but they added a lot of guys. And I think that Mike Zimmer being a defensive minded coach, and then I think that's just really going to play to their strengths here, right? Because that's the unit they really need to improve on. It's funny, Minnesota not that long ago used to be like a really good defensive team, and the offense was like middle of the pack, and it's like flipped hard. So, yeah, I think they'll improve quite a bit, actually. Will they improve enough to be like a real contender in the NFC North and the NFC? That's yet to be seen. Um, I don't think it's that crazy of an outcome if the defense is good enough to where they're like right there with the Packers. Like the offense is very, very good. So like I will say that the defense does improve. To what degree, that's yet to be seen. That's kind of hard to figure out.
Yeah, it's funny to look at them when you mentioned their defense used to be stout. Yeah, 2017, they had the first ranked defense in points and yards against. And then you go to 2018 when Kirk Cousins era starts. The defense was ninth in points against, fourth in yards against. And then it kind of, since then, they went up in points against to fifth, but then they let up more yards, 14th. And then obviously last year was really a rock bottom where they were 29th in points against and 27th in yards. And then you look at the offense. I mean, offense last year exploded. They were 11th in points for, and then fourth in the yards. Yeah, I just think you have the guys there. You just need to kind of turn the clock. It's time. This is another team that's kind of time. Mike Zimmer has been there for a while, since 2014. It's like, has he ran his course? Is he not able to get more out of his guys or kind of get the same production out of his guys? They have Danielle Hunter. Like, you got to be able to get something out of him. They have the core unit. And then obviously we saw their offense. Dude, if you get a middle of the pack defense, if you get a 15th ranked defense, just kind of halfway, that offense is good enough where you could win 11, 12 ball games and see yourself making a push for a Super Bowl in an NFC that's kind of outside of Tampa Bay is kind of pretty up in Tampa Bay and Green Bay. I guess we'll give respect to Green Bay. But yeah, I'm going to be with you. I mean, it's got to be better than last year, right? You add a couple guys, you add Patrick Peterson. I believe they brought back Mackenzie Alexander too, who was with them before. So it's just like, I refuse to believe that a team with that level of offensive skill with Justin Jefferson, Thielen, Dalvin Cook, and those guys, that they're going to be that bad again. Now, I don't know if it'll push them any farther, even if they are a 15th to 18th ranked defense, because then you could see their offense sputter, right? Kirk Cousins is just downright horrible. But I'm going to assume that the defense will be better. It just has to be better. I refuse it, as I said, that a team's going to be 30th again.
Yeah, I agree. It just has to be better, right? And like to your point, the NFC does feel wide open. Yes, you give respect to Green Bay as well, but like so the Bucks are very formidable, obviously defending champs. Their whole roster's back. That's like the big hill to climb in the NFC. But like behind them, everybody feels beatable. Like all the good teams, basically the whole NFC West, Green Bay, Minnesota. Like they all feel beatable. I don't think anyone from the NFC East is going to be super tough. So it's like if Minnesota can just get that defense going, like they're right there for an NFC championship appearance and in a crazy enough world, a Super Bowl appearance. Like it's not that crazy of a scenario this season.
Yeah, that's facts. I don't even know if I had to give respect to Green Bay, honestly, because they have their own little world of distractions going on. So it's really Tampa Bay's there, and then we got a mixture of teams that are very good football teams that kind of each have to do their own thing and have a recipe to kind of go against Tampa Bay. Now going in, this is a big one as well. When you draft a quarterback in the third round, could this be the end? So I'm going to say, is this really a make or break year for Kirk Cousins? I mean, even if he has a decent year, but say the team doesn't make the playoffs, ultimately the quarterback shoulders a lot of the blame. Regardless, it's just how the NFL is nowadays, right? Wins and losses. Everybody likes to look at the quarterback play and the Kirk Cousins primetime stats, and this guy can't win a game in prime time and he can't do this. So I'm just going to go out there. Is this a make or break year with only one playoff appearance in his tenure as a guy that was labeled as the missing link to that offense? Is his back against the wall in Minnesota?
I don't think it is, honestly. Uh, I like Kellen Mond as just like a third round pick from Texas A&M. Just kind of let him learn behind Kirk Cousins. I think they'll just play out Kirk Cousins' contract. So he's under contract this year for base salary of 21 mil, and then next year base salary of 35 million. I don't think Kellen Mond's going to step into this offense and be more efficient than Kirk Cousins is. Kirk Cousins isn't like a phenomenal quarterback. He's good, but he's not like great or anything. I think they just play out the contract, and then that would give, in theory, if they just played out the contract, that would be only 2 years, and then he'd be an unrestricted free agent, and then you'd have Kellen Mond 2 years under his belt, a full off season, learning the offense and get him comfortable, and then you'd have him grow with Cook and Justin Jefferson, all that if he works out. But I really don't think it's a make or break year for Kirk Cousins. I think it's more make or break for Zimmer than Cousins, but like I think they'll just let Cousins play out his 2 years.
Yeah, I just realized that Kirk Cousins' agent is really an all-time finesse legend. So on March of this year, March 19th, which already obviously passed, his 2022 salary already guaranteed itself. So it's like, yeah, I don't think they can really afford it. The dead cap hits 45 mil if they cut him. So they're just not going to, they're not going to eat $45 million a year. Now that I look at that, it's kind of, it's a question that, hey, it could be like they could put pressure on him and start working Kellen Mond into that role. But yeah, I would have to sit back after analyzing it and looking at that contract. Shout out to his agent. His agent's breaded when you get that guy multiple fully guaranteed contracts. Like Vikings front office pretty desperate. But I mean, Kirk Cousins, obviously he's serviceable. He's good. I don't think he's as good as he's ever been really like gassed up to be in my eyes. But he does the job, and they're kind of locked into it now that looking at it.
Yeah, and it's once again, it's only 2 seasons, and there's good offensive weapons around him, so he's going to be a productive quarterback still. I mean, hell, their really good year it was Case Keenum at quarterback, so it's like Minnesota's never exactly had like, at least recently, had like elite level quarterback play.
Nah, yeah, it's kind of I would look at it's more if I reworded that. Yeah, it's more of kind of a big year make or break probably from Mike Zimmer, who's been there since 2014. And I mean, I'll switch that around. Is he on the clock? If this team doesn't make the playoffs, could we see them go in a different direction and get rid of him and kind of bring in a fresh head coach for Kirk Cousins last year?
I think so. If they don't make the playoffs 2 years in a row, I think so. Because like they underachieved last year. They had a terrible start to the season. They played much better at the end of the year. And yeah, like we said, they added a lot of pieces on defense. So that should be an improved unit. And that's Zimmer's specialty. So as a head coach, he needs to make sure that unit is actually improved. And there's just too many weapons on offense for them not to be winning enough games to at least be a wild card team. I think they'll make the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs, I would assume Mike Zimmer's gone.
Yeah, that's probably facts. I mean, that's really the Vikings they're a weird team. They've kind of always been a weird team, even since 2017 when they kind of had that outlier year and they made that push and went to the NFC title game. It was kind of like, wow, this is a weird year. And then they had Kirk Cousins in. They kind of continued that trend. They have a lot of potential, but it's like they got to pull something out of that defense. You can't be a bottom ranked defense again and expect to really compete when you got to play the Packers, you got to play the Browns, Seahawks, at the Cardinals, the 49ers, Steelers, Rams. Like they have some games at the Chargers. Like you're going to have games where your defense has to do something. It can't be all offense and all Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, and Kirk Cousins and those guys. So, I mean, any closing thoughts on the Minnesota Vikings?
I have a fantasy question for you.
Here.
Justin Jefferson came in, had 88 receptions, 1,400 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Do you think he has a sophomore slump? Do you think he has similar numbers, or do you think he goes into this year full off season and actually produces even better numbers?
I don't think he'll be better just because Thielen's there and then Dalvin Cook's there and then Irv Smith. They kind of got mouths to feed. I mean, I think he'll be productive, but he just suffered an AC joint sprain. They kind of thought it was a labrum. So he just got hurt. I think it was like a day or two ago. So I don't think he'll take like a huge sophomore slump. He's a very good player. He runs good routes. He's fast, but I don't think he'll exceed that. Like I think he'll be another 1,000. Like I think you'll get 1,000 yards out of him. But I don't think he'll go crazy and you'll see some 100 catches, 1,700 yards. I just think with Adam Thielen still there, and then they like to run Dalvin Cook quite a bit, that I don't think he'll exceed those numbers.
I think that's fair. He'll definitely have a good season and be productive. I could see at one point in this man's career he'll have 100 catches, 1,700 yards. It might not be next year, but he'll do it eventually.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. When Adam Thielen eventually moves on, he's like a true like number one, and there's like he maybe have you always need like that other guy across from you that kind of gets you those easier matchups or gets you that single coverage. So we have to see where they go when the Adam Thielen run eventually ends. But yeah, I mean, I was mad when the Eagles passed on Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson, he's a stud, right? It is what it is. But yeah, for this year, I would go with he's somewhere right around there, maybe a little bit less. We'll jump straight into it. Record prediction, as we do for all these teams. DraftKings Sportsbook has the Vikings over under. It's set at 9 wins. Great number. I think it's like a solid one. It really forces your hand when you go through and you look at some of these games and what they can do. But when I went through and I picked and did my picks, I had the Vikings finishing this year at 9-8. I just think they go on the road week 2 at the Cardinals. They play the Seahawks and they play the Browns. And then you got Ravens, Chargers back to back. Ravens coming off a bye week. And then you go out to LA. And then obviously you got the Packers twice, the 49ers, the Steelers, the Rams. They just got they just have a schedule where they're going to lose games. I don't know if the defense got that much better on paper to really push them. So, I mean, they're right on that number 9. They could obviously steal a game somewhere in there. They could find a way to maybe I had them splitting with the Bears. Obviously, I said in the Bears segment, if 2 teams are kind of close, I usually like to split those up. So they could steal that game. Hell, they could even win week 2 at the Cardinals. But I had them at 9-8.
I'm not much off. I have them at 10-7. I think they're going to be a wild card team, but they just have a tough schedule. If the defense can't get it together, it might be a rough season for them. But you said it earlier, they just have a bunch of tough opponents: Browns, Cardinals, Niners, the Packers twice, obviously. It's going to be tough for Minnesota, but they have enough talent that I think they can reach 10 wins.
Yeah, it's fair. There's as I always say, coin flip games in there that on paper you don't have them winning, but they find a way to win when the season happens. But so that's really a wrap for the Vikings. Then we'll jump into finally the last team on the docket in the NFC North. Probably, it's weird, they're the most interesting team on the docket in the NFC North. We got the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, the Aaron Rodgers saga ended. It was kind of a weird one. We kind of tried to push this episode back and back. We pushed it to the back of the pack just to kind of let the Aaron Rodgers thing play out and see where it's going to go. But as we saw, Aaron Rodgers is back in Green Bay. Devontae Adams is showing up as well. They re-signed Aaron Jones. They got Kevin King back. They went corner in the draft in the first round with Eric Stokes. It was questionable. A lot of people got pretty pissed off they didn't try to go snag a receiver, Rashad Bateman or an Elijah Moore to shore up that receiver position. But they went out and got Randall Cobb. I don't know. I mean, he's one of Aaron's boys, but I don't know what Randall Cobb really does at this point in his career. They drafted Amari Rodgers as well, and they went center Josh Myers. out of Ohio State who's kind of going to put in. He's going to be a big piece to the puzzle because they lose Corey Linsley to the Chargers, who was their starting center. So it's like it looks like he is going to be slotted in. I haven't really seen their depth chart yet, but it would look like he's slotted in to be their starting center. So it's a rookie center week one with a. It's good to have him with a veteran quarterback instead of Jordan Love. And then they lose Christian Kirksey, so they didn't really lose like a ton of pieces when I went through. They kind of bring back the core. They have their defenses at Arius Smith. They have Preston Smith as well. Darnell Savage is back there. Jair Alexander. They're kind of set up and primed again to make a push to the Super Bowl. But yeah, just give me your early takes on the Green Bay Packers now that the Aaron Rodgers saga is over.
Well, Aaron Rodgers reported to camp. He had that press conference. He cleared the air what he felt he needed to say, and I think that's it for him. Green Bay knows how to focus as a veteran team. Aaron Rodgers, he's all that offseason stuff is not going to bother him. He's going to go in there and play really good football. They brought back like almost all their key players. There were some changes. I really like their first 3 draft picks: Stokes, Myers, Rodgers. Yeah, Elijah Moore would have been pretty cool, but let's see what Amari Rodgers can do. But I think Green Bay will be right there. They're going to be a very good team. I wouldn't be surprised if this is another year where they figure out another creative way to lose a championship game.
Yeah, I mean, when Aaron Rodgers shows up a couple weeks ago, right after his golf match with Bryson DeChambeau and Tom Brady and those guys, he just immediately, it was funny because a week prior to that, everybody said, yeah, Aaron Rodgers is about to announce his retirement. Sportsbooks yanked the Packers win-loss total. Their Super Bowl odds jumped up to 35-1, 40-1 in some places. And then what do you know? The retirement never happened. He shows up and he kind of, I would say, got the control that he wanted to, right? He spent his entire career, obviously he's on the same level. I mean, he's a great quarterback, just like Tom Brady, but he's kind of spent his entire career in that shadow, as watching Tom Brady as the guy that's winning all these Super Bowls. And then Aaron Rodgers is kind of just there. He has his one Super Bowl, but he is watching Tom Brady do his thing and then come to the NFC last year and obviously go into Green Bay and beat the Packers. So on paper, the Packers are primed again, but it's like there's a lot of distractions going into the season. And I'll just fire out the first question: is this the last dance in Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers?
I really think it is. Aaron Rodgers he's one of the few guys where if he says something, like I believe it. Like if he actually retired, I really wouldn't have been surprised. He wants to play. Green Bay's done a lot of things. I think if he were to stay in Green Bay, maybe it'd be as defending champion, so they wouldn't win the Super Bowl, or they get rid of that GM and they basically just do whatever Aaron wants. I think that would be the only way he stays. I think this is his last year, though. And as to like the distractions thing, I think other football teams, it would affect a lot. But if your quarterback is like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, veterans who are still elite, they've done it for so long, I don't put a lot of weight into the distractions because they're just so good.
Yeah. I'm gonna go the other way. I'm gonna say it's not the last dance for Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. I think he finally achieved the end goal. I mean, he saw so many guys through his tenure: Jordy Nelson, as he mentioned, Charles Woodson. A lot of the guys he mentioned though weren't really bad football moves. As I sat there and like listened to all the guys he named, when you go through, I mean, there's certain guys that are, but it's like a lot of those dudes really weren't that bad of football decisions. If you're a GM running a football team and letting an aging Charles Woodson roll out and letting aging guys, Randall Cobb, kind of go. Obviously, it annoys. I would say more their drafting. He didn't really point to their drafting that much, which was very interesting. I think their drafting was far worse in terms of setting Aaron Rodgers up rather than letting aging veteran guys go. But I'm going to say it's not. I think they'll eventually lock up Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams wants the bag. I think they'll give him the bag and he'll stay there. They have that defense. I don't really, as much as I did 2-3 weeks ago, saw Aaron Rodgers. I said, book it. He'll be a Raider. It kind of fits the Las Vegas Raiders, Aaron Rodgers. And I even went as far as saying Devontae Adams, he's going to find a way to get Devontae Adams and bring him to Vegas with him and have those two guys headline at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. But I just don't think so. I think the Packers caved. I mean, they kind of had to when you have Aaron Rodgers, who's as good as he is, and he's a franchise quarterback and still at his age he won the MVP last year. He's still doing his thing. Even though you draft Jordan Love, I think they've kind of caved when they went out and did a Randall Cobb move. I think they're kind of in Aaron's hands. Aaron will get as much say as he wants now, which is kind of weird. It's the opposite of Tom Brady when he left New England. He didn't really get any say. Bill Belichick was not giving up an inch of ground and roster control, but I think we've seen the Packers kind of take a step back and say, do we want to remain relevant? I don't think that kind of shows. I don't know if they have much faith in Jordan Love. I haven't really seen much Jordan Love, to be honest. I don't think anybody has seen it, but I think he will be there. I think we'll play 2, 3 more years and then end up retiring as a Packer. I just think they'll cease and they'll give him whatever he wants, right? They'll say, Aaron, who do you want? What do you want to do? As he kind of aired it out straight up at the press conference. I love that press conference, to be honest, because you rarely, what other star is going to sit up there and kind of really air it out? I don't know if any guy is willing to just sit there stone faced and just say what they want.
Yeah, I agree. And at least the press conference part to the drafting thing, that is where Green Bay's like really let down Aaron Rodgers. No first round skill positions throughout like his tenure at all, really. And when they did draft the running back up high, it was Eddie Lacy. That didn't really work out well. But to the point of Aaron wanting like control and to make decisions, I think just like a huge factor is just the fact that Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay and like won his first year. And in the process of winning, they really listened to Tom and did a lot of the things that he asked for. Especially personnel wise, he got AB there. He told him to draft I think it was a tackle in the first round. They drafted him. They actually listened to Tom. Bruce Arians was on record last year at points saying that like, oh, I just let him go. I just let him coach. There's times where like I shut up and just let him go because like Tom's doing a great job. There's no way he got to do that with Bill in New England all those years. Yeah, they were extremely successful, but like he didn't get that freedom and like show his personality and do those things. And like that's what Aaron wants. And the fact that Tampa Bay was successful while allowing Tom to do all that, I think is just a huge factor in this.
Exactly. Yeah. I think in a sense, Aaron Rodgers is a little jealous that he watched Tom Brady, who I said at the beginning of this kind of Aaron Rodgers is kind of in his shadow as Tom Brady has been the more successful winning Super Bowls. And Aaron Rodgers kind of was like, damn, I'm sitting here. This guy came to my conference immediately, gets Tristan Wirfs, who he wants, gets AB in there, gets Gronkowski, gets basically any name that he shouts out, the Bucks go out and bring in to put alongside of him. And Green Bay really started doing that with the Randall Cobb thing. I think there'll be more. He's going to want Devontae Adams to get paid, and they'll do that. And I think it just sets up. As much as I saw Aaron Rodgers leaving, I just don't see him in another uniform. I think it'd be odd as much as he might not be happy. I mean, obviously this can change, but I think this offseason, this coming one, so not this one, they kind of started it this year, but when you go into the 2022 offseason, I think Rodgers will be at full disposal to kind of say, this is who I want. I want this guy, draft this guy. And you'll start to see the Packers start to do that because it's all in his hands, right? When they did the extension, the rest of the years are voided. So it's kind of like he gets to play this year, see what they're doing, see how he's happy. Is he happy with the GM? Is he happy with ownership? Are they going to let him do his thing? Or he can just say, yeah, I'm out. And the Packers really, they don't have anything. If he wants to go, he can go. So I think the Packers, by not moving him, right, they could have just moved him this offseason when he was pissed off and said, yeah, let's just get rid of him. Let's get Jordan Love in here. Let's let him play. We drafted Jordan Love for a reason, and we're going to let him take over the reins. But by being that stubborn and kind of letting this thing linger in the training camp, and then Aaron finally show up and they go out and get one of the guys that Rodgers mentioned, I just think he'll stay and he'll finish out his career in Green Bay.
Well, he was on the record at one point saying he wants to finish his career in Green Bay. Now, if the front office does change their operations of how they run things and do let Aaron like make draft picks and like really have a heavy say on personnel, then yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he stays. I just don't think it's going to happen at this point. But this is a full year from now, so like who knows?
Exactly. What's I going to say? Yeah, well, you already pretty much gave your answer when I said, well, all the distraction about Aaron possibly leaving after the year, will that kind of hinder this team as much as, I mean, he's a veteran and he can kind of dodge the bullets that kind of creeps in to other guys' heads, right? Because there's other guys on the roster that kind of got to plan their future when they're working out contract extensions and they're working on new deals and approaching free agency. I mean, even if you're a guy like Devontae Adams, you're playing a whole season where, I mean, I think him and Aaron are close enough where if Aaron was going to bolt, he would let Devontae Adams know, hey, if you don't want to sign here, don't sign a deal here because I'm going to leave anyway. And you can go get money. The money's going to be there. I mean, Devontae Adams arguably the best wide receiver in football right now. Like there's money. There will be money for him on the market. But yeah, I guess you're keeping that take, the no distractions going through this season is, hey, if they have a couple bad stretches and you have the media saying, rumor this, Aaron Rodgers is going to leave, not happy 4 weeks into the season if they start, say, 2-2.
You know, I think will happen if they start 2-2 and the media gets going. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to hold a press conference and tell them to relax. It's just what he's done in the past, right? When they've had slow starts, Green Bay's just so talented, and Aaron Rodgers is just so elite. So when in the past when he's told them to relax and we'll get it going, they still end up being at least a divisional round in the playoffs. So it's like, even if it kind of like comes about this season and maybe there's like some month periods where like it doesn't go smoothly or there's some distractions, I think in the long run it's really not going to matter much of like their season outcome. They're still going to be very good and get where they need to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't disagree, but it could get weird. I mean, you got Matt LaFleur, if he's coaching kind of a guy who's going to bounce, it's like how involved is Aaron Rodgers going to go to the line and kind of do his own thing and say, screw you to LaFleur, and then go to ownership and say, yeah, tell LaFleur press hit on the brakes, because I want to start controlling this show on the field too, which he already kind of does, but I'd assume Matt LaFleur is a little bit more stricter on the calling. I think he's been annoyed with LaFleur a couple of times, especially last year, rather than Mike McCarthy. So yeah, I just think it's a wait and see. Depends how they start. I think if they start really slow, it's going to be hard to avoid the rumors of will Aaron Rodgers bounce. I'm not really worried about Aaron Rodgers. It's more the roles, the guys around him. It's like, are the guys around him going to want to stay in Green Bay if no Aaron Rodgers is there? It's kind of Aaron Rodgers he's the guy that lures you to Green Bay, right? Like if you're a good football player, if you're a free agent, even if you're a guy looking for a spot on a team and you go around the league and look at your market and you say, hey, can I go compete for a championship and go to Green Bay? And it's Jordan Love at quarterback, you're probably not going there. If it's Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, you're probably going there. So it's like, it's more about the other guys. I don't know how dialed in the rest of the unit will be if these rumors start coming up mid-season. And then lastly, I'm just going to get straight into it. This is a Super Bowl team that has Super Bowl aspirations. They obviously hosted the NFC title last year, and they're looking to, if not host it, at least get back to that NFC title game this year. If not, obviously the Super Bowl is their ultimate goal. But can they get over the hump after last year's NFC title game loss? Obviously, they lose their starting center, so they're tossing a rookie in. They bring back Aaron Jones. They got Eric Stokes. We don't know how rookie corners are going to turn up. They still have Jair Alexander, and they brought back Kevin King, who did the infamous pass interference, wasn't it? That really got everybody worked up. So can these guys get over the hump? Will these guys get over the hump, I guess, is the real question. Obviously, they can.
Yeah, they certainly can. Will they? I don't think they will, honestly. I don't know. Green Bay is like, they're constantly there, but I think Aaron Rodgers 1-4 in NFC championship games. It's just, he figures out, like, I wouldn't say he figures out, the Packers figure out ways to like beat themselves when it matters most throughout their Aaron Rodgers era. I wouldn't be surprised if they make it there. They obviously can, right? They're elite, but I just don't think they will. I thought the Bucs were going to beat them heading in last year, and then the year before that, the Niners were clearly just the best team in the NFC, and they steamrolled the Packers. It's just, oh no, I'll have to see how the season plays out, see how they're playing and everything. They certainly can. I don't think they will. There's just something about that Packers team with Aaron Rodgers. They're always very good, but with the exception of the Super Bowl year where they're the wild card team, they can't really figure out how to get over that hump.
Yeah, I think they're a good football squad. Obviously, the goal is always, when you have Aaron Rodgers at quarterbacks, to win a Super Bowl and make a Super Bowl. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, we should really rename this the NFL Agreements Podcast, because we seem to have very few disagreements, but now we jump in. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you again. I think the goal, they have the talent, they have everything there, but I don't think so. I think last year was really, they blew a prime opportunity at home against Tom Brady, who in that second half ultimately basically handed the game to him. He was like, yeah, go out and win. I think he threw 3 interceptions in the second half. And it was kind of like, here you go, Aaron, like you can get to a Super Bowl, man. I have 6 of them. Like, we'll let you get to one or get to another. Sorry, go for number 2. And they kind of blew that right at home. I don't think they'll have that set up again. I think if they did make it back, they'd be going on the road. And yeah, I just don't see it. I think a combination of things. You don't know. The future's uncertain, unhappy players. it's hard to say that this team will get over the hump with everything that's kind of went on this offseason.
And you know that NFC Championship point where you're talking about the interceptions, like here you go, Aaron. The Russell Wilson did the same thing a few years back, probably 5 years ago now with Seattle. Seattle had no business winning that NFC Championship game. They got the like fake field goal touchdown, the onside kicks. Russell just threw pick after pick after pick. I think it was 4 of them. So like that wasn't even the first time Aaron Rodgers has had that many opportunities offensively in a title game and couldn't get it done. So it's like, I don't know. I have a lot of confidence for him to get there, but weirdly enough, I don't have the confidence for him to get over the hump.
Exactly. Sometimes it's not the field goal decision. Sometimes it's the 3 other chances that you had in that game to get a touchdown across and really make a difference. But yeah, any closing thoughts on the Packers as we kind of wrap this thing up?
I expect the Packers to do what they do. Devontae Adams will have a great year. Rodgers will be really good. Aaron Jones signed, I think, a 3-year deal. He'll be good. The defense is going to ball out. So, to me, it's all about the postseason for Green Bay. Can they have postseason success past the divisional round?
Yeah, that's facts. It's really what it comes down to. And we'll just go straight into the prediction. Our predictions for the Packers coming into this year. The over-under is set at 10 games. It's a pretty good one as well. I see them at least as a 10-win squad, and it's just that's what it is. When I went through, I had them at 11-6. I like kind of some of the matchups they get, right? They get the Saints, brought the rip. I had them winning that one, and then they go on the road to the 49ers. That's going to be tough. But then they draw the Steelers at home, Washington at home. They get the Seahawks at home. They even get the Rams at home. They get the Browns at home. So it seems like when I look at their schedule, it's like a lot of their tough games, they get to stand their ground and play them at home. Obviously, they have tough games. They go on the road to Kansas City. That's never easy. And they go on the road to Baltimore. Obviously, they play Minnesota twice. I set them at 11-6. I think they have enough talent across the board, and they kind of draw a good schedule for them for some good results. 11-6. I think it's obviously they'll be back in the playoffs.
Yeah, I have them at 12-5. They'll probably be either the 1 seed or the 2 seed in the NFC. I'm thinking the Bucks will be right there with them. And then as the NFC East is not there, but then like the NFC West, they'll just beat up on each other. So I don't think they'll have the record to be the 1 or 2 seed. So I fully expect Green Bay to be the 1 or 2 seed in the NFC.
There we go. You heard it. So that kind of, he said 1 or 2 seed Green Bay. I wouldn't be surprised. They've got enough talent. They're kind of outside of Tampa. They are the most solid setup team to be there in the NFC side. Any really closing thoughts to wrap up the NFC North? Obviously, we got to wait and see with how long Justin Fields will sit until they finally pull the trigger on him. And then what the Vikings defense, if they can get anything. We know the Vikings offense will come out to play.
Yeah, I'm more interested in watching the middle of this division, the Vikings and the Bears, than the top or the bottom. It's just like those teams have bigger question marks to me, and I just want to see how it plays out.
Yeah, that's facts. I don't really give a damn about the Vikings, to be honest, but I really want to see Justin Fields play football. I think he really won. I wasn't a big Justin Fields guy, but when I watched that bowl game against Clemson, he really, after he got drilled, and to come out there and really show that heart, and he made some throws that honestly I didn't think he really had in him. I was dogging him when they played Northwestern in the Big Ten championship, and he kind of surprised me. So I'm excited with everything I've heard in Bears camp. It sounds like Justin Fields is really the real deal. But that's going to do it for today's show. I want to thank everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you have any suggestions. We would love to hear your opinion, as always. Spotify link will be in the description if you're an audio-only listener. If you want to go back and check out our previous division previews, we have a playlist for those, where you can just hit our videos tab and you will see all of our content that is listed. And as always, thank everybody for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.